Please welcome co-founder and managing director of the Queensland Indigenous Women's Ranger Network and winner of the 2022 Earthshot Prize, Larissa Hale. Co-founder and CEO of Kheyti and winner of the 2022 Earthshot Prize, Kaushik Kappagantulu. For a conversation with trustee of the Earthshot Prize, Her Excellency Dame Jacinda Ardern.
Good afternoon, everyone. In the 12 months since I last joined Mike in the 2021 cohort of finalists here in New York, I've suddenly found myself with a little more time on my hands and had the privilege of becoming an Earthshot Prize trustee. I'm thrilled, though, to now be sitting with two of last year's winners, Larissa Hale, winner of Revive Our Oceans, and Kaushik Kappagantulu, who won the Protect and Restore Nature Prize. Larissa, I'm going to start with you, which I know you're thrilled about.
Yeah.
You founded the Queensland Indigenous Women's Ranger Network with the goal of empowering Indigenous women with leadership roles to take care of their lands. I want to start with a simple question, though. What prompted you to start on this incredible journey?
I've been a ranger now for roughly 16 years. And when I first started our program, I was the only Indigenous female ranger coordinator for Queensland. I was also the youngest woman in the room, and sitting in that room where there was all non-Indigenous men talking about Indigenous land and sea management, it didn't feel right. But there was definitely a gap. You know, for women, we have a very big role to play in our communities and on our country, and it is our responsibility to look after country. So we started with me, and then I lobbied the government and worked with them to try and grow the program. And in 2018, we had 26 ladies come to the table, and we discussed what we needed to do to encourage more women. And it came down to empowerment, creating opportunities, more training. And now I have 165 ladies that I work with.
Which is incredible. Now, for many in this room who work in the environment and climate space, they'll understand why it's so important to engage Indigenous groups in the guardianship of oceans. But tell us a little more from your perspective of why that's so important.
I think the one thing that I always tell people is that we are there. I remember sitting in a Queensland Parks meeting, and they said, we have this beautiful biodiversity and it's a pretty national park. And I said, yeah, but it's my home. My ancestors were here, my mother's here, and she still works as a ranger. I'm here, and we're going to be here for generations to come. We've been observing our land and sea country for generations. So we need to work together. We need to work with Western science and traditional science to be able to make everything come together with a better picture of how we should be looking after land and sea country.
Brilliant. Now, Kaushik, I'm going to ask you, you had an ambitious goal of reaching 50,000 farmers by 2027 and 1 million farmers in 10 years with your greenhouse in a box. So just a small goal. Now, there are 100 million smallholder farmers in India who are extremely vulnerable to the impact of climate change. Tell us how you remain engaged with the community and why that is so important.
Right. Yeah, I would say that it is a small goal because there are 100 million smallholder farmers in India and 500 million across the world. And they're all struggling with the impacts of climate change, and they see them much ahead of most other communities. So Kheyti was started because we spent time with those communities, and we talked to almost 1,000 farmers over 6 months, lived with them, worked with them, and did farming with them so that we could understand those impacts that they are seeing firsthand. So I think unless we solve the problem for those 500 million, we are not really going to have a long-term future in terms of food security, livelihood, so many other areas. So coming back to the point of sort of engaging with the community, there's no way we can build solutions without engaging with the community. So I did not come from a farming family. I am from India. I am from the area that we work in, but my context is completely different. So at every step of the way, like I mentioned in the beginning, it was talking to 1,000 farmers before even thinking of greenhouses as a solution, to understand the problem first. Then at every step of the solution, our greenhouse was designed in collaboration with farmers. So in our latest version of the greenhouse, more than 2,000 farmers had inputs where they co-designed the greenhouse with us. And that's the reason it works for them right now. Even now, as we scale up, we work with community-led organizations, women farmer groups, to not only design the program, but think about how do we scale this. Because when you're building a solution for a community, if you are solution first, the solution will fail, it will not scale. But if you are user first, if you're community first, and you involve them in every part of the decision making, that's when we can actually achieve that ambitious goal of not only a million, but the big vision is that every smallholder farmer on this planet has access to climate smart technologies and doesn't worry about the future because of climate change.
Fantastic. And you may think that the scale of your project is small, but when you come from a nation of 5 million people, that sounds quite significant to probably most of us here. But tell us a little bit about the potential here. I mean, one of Earthshot's big driving principles is that idea of urgency, but also optimism. Give us a little bit of hope. Tell us about the potential impact of your project on farmers' lives and livelihoods and also their environment.
Right. Yeah, so when we started out, the situation seemed pretty bleak. Like you mentioned, smallholder farmers work hard all year round, but they have absolutely no control over their incomes because of external risks, heat, rain, pests, hail, which all wipe out their already meager incomes. So our solution, which didn't come overnight, we spent 5 years designing it, working with the community, does 3 kinds of impacts. One is it doubles farmers' incomes. It helps them grow more yields all through the year, and then use that to double. And on average, our farmers today, many of our farmers are tripling their incomes, but doubling incomes is a goal that we set ourselves on. But incomes is our first level. It protects those incomes for long-term climate resilience by protecting it from heat, rain, pests, and hail. And finally, it makes smallholder agriculture sustainable by using 1/50th the water when compared to traditional cultivation and much lesser fertilizer and pesticide. So that creates really long-term impact, not really short-term impact, but really a pathway out of poverty and a resilience for the long term for these families. Today, we work with about 4,000 families, out of 90% of which came in the last 12 months, a lot of it after we won the Earthshot Prize. And clearly, we have a line of sight towards reaching 100,000 farmers in the next 5 years.
Incredible. And you can see a common theme between our winners so far, this idea of economic empowerment at the same time as finding sustainable and climate-friendly solutions. Larissa, I'm going to come back to you with a final call to action. What would your message be to potential partners around supporting how they can support you, your project, and the solutions that we're seeing developed here?
That's a hard one. When I've spoken to people, I've asked them to actually hear what we're talking about, and it's about the people, it's about the community. It's a community-led project. I don't have a product that we sell. It is honestly about human-centric, holistic approach to looking after land and sea country. So my biggest thing would be walk the country. If you have the opportunity to go and work with First Nations people, definitely go, introduce yourself and walk the country with them, and you'll understand why everything is so important. It's our heart, it's our home, and when I talk about country, country is me. It is part of our being. So what we always talk about at home is healthy country, healthy people, healthy country. We need both.
Fantastic. So, Larissa, consider that an invitation to everyone in this room. I can attest Australia is closer than you think and worth the journey. Kaushik, what about you? What's your call to action to the partners in this room today?
Yeah, coming back to what I said, I think that the big ambitious goals we have over and above the million farmers cannot be achieved alone. We cannot make 500 million farmers climate resilient and sustainable by just Kheyti doing our work or even just working on greenhouses. So I think we call it in Kheyti, we call it the V is above the I. So what we're looking for is people across the spectrum to partner with us, whether it's people working on other solutions which you can integrate with, whether it's other on-ground partners who we can spread this word with, whether it's people who'll join us as team members, funders, partners. So we can only walk this journey if we do it together. So we're looking to get hundreds of people on this, and I want to see in 5 years another 100 Kheytis started up so that we can actually solve this problem in the next decade or the next 20 years.
Incredible. Thank you both for... Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for your solutions, but also for your optimism and, of course, that final call to action.